Hello, everybody, and welcome to the WCEG Network. You're listening to WCEG Talk Radio. You can find us on WCEGTalkRadio.com. We are the Worldwide Community Empowerment Group, and I'm your host, Reverend Diane Dougherty. You're listening to Take a Stand. Join us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on Instagram at WCEG_talk_radio, or call in. You can see the number right at the bottom of the screen here, 678-619-1402. And you can find us on YouTube Live at TV WCEG Network. So we're growing and shifting and changing, and we have tonight an excellent guest whose name is Nate Dyer. Hi, Nate.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm so grateful that you have come on with us. And we also have Joe Flint with us.
How about it?
By accident. Oh, happy fall. And we're going to have a great conversation with Nate today. He is an advocate, most particularly involved in advocacy for Atlanta Public Schools.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
And I've been very impressed with him. I met him at a big auditorium. I don't know where we were. And he was all dressed up, and he stood up and kept that hand up until someone called on him. Excellent questions.
Hey, well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Excellent questions. I've always been impressed with your enthusiasm and your advocacy at a time. It's like you're a prophet at a time when it is needed most. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Nate.
Well, to set this record straight, I kick ass for the children. And I just be, quite blunt. Black boys and girls. And they deserve so much, but given so little. And I know, hey, that may be a bit extreme for the radio, but, when do we let people know how we truly feel about our young people without being so politically correct? And I just make no bones about it. So when I fight and I stand up for children, and in particular black boys and girls who are often disenfranchised, I go for the juggler. So I use my talents and abilities, the ability to organize, the ability to, of course, do graphics, create propaganda, and strategically try to move the system in its proper course. And that's to be fair and equitable to all children.
Very well said. Very well said.
Thank you.
Now, tell us a little bit about your background. How did all of this arise up in you?
I'd say I come from a family of educators. I'm from Mississippi originally, and you can say it's in my blood. And I grew up in a school that was predominantly black. We had second, third hand, fifth hand books, 15 years old instruments. So we had pretty much the second hand of everything. But we had nurturing and love, and that just helped to propel us to a whole nother level, Huge. And
you must have had good teachers.
Well, yeah, I would say that generation had a backbone.
That's right.
And that was very important, because if, as an adult, and you have a backbone, well, children fall in line. Mm-hmm. But if you're there for a job and you have no spine, you're going to get run over.
That's
Absolutely.
right.
So children know when you have it and you don't. So it's no fault to the children. And I work with a great number of the children that the system wants to label failing or undisciplined. But when you have a plan of action for success, you hold the children accountable and you expose them to, the higher heights of life, children respond. Mm-hmm. If you expect them to come out saying, I'll follow you anyway, well, then, you're in the wrong business. It takes, especially I'll say in the communities that I grew up in, children aren't so easily warmed up to you.
That's right.
There's a wall. But you see, in today's times, people use that wall to say, you don't want anything. You're just being hard, so you're going to fail. Instead of breaking through that wall and understanding that you're going to have a believer for life.
That's right.
Okay.
I have a friend that I taught, and he had a full scholarship to college. And after 6 months, he decided he was going to leave and join the circus.
Okay.
And his parents were absolutely appalled. Nobody was like Paul. So he did join the circus, and when he came back, he stayed in Chicago and started Circus Team. And he went into the inner cities, and he got all kinds of people to advocate for his after-school program, which was learning circus trips after you did your homework.
Right.
And they put on shows, and he said there is no one more capable than a child from the inner city who is able and capable to fearless. So when they learned that fearlessness through the circus and this group that they took them all over the world, they also learned.
And you see, exposure.
Exactly.
I mean, if you're going to keep children in one area and not give them any type of light, but then you close the schools on top of them.
Oh, yes.
You know, for one thing, if you claim that children are failing and behind, shouldn't you open or expand educational opportunities?
Absolutely.
Instead of closing them?
Absolutely.
So it just tells you what the objective is, because no child is born unwilling to learn. I mean, if that was the case, how do they develop speech? The ability to walk?
That's right.
You know, so if a child didn't want to learn, well, they'll stay in the womb, right? Do it, just never come on out.
And another issue, too, is I have worked with a number of people that work in prisons.
Right.
And really, when you listen to the business models of all of these kids that learn how to manipulate systems, they're brilliant.
They're brilliant.
They're millionaires by the time they're 13.
So let's talk about the system that won't benefit from that.
That's right.
And let's talk about Atlanta and the landscape of it. So we have the tale of two cities in this town. You know, there's one black and one white. There's one that's supposed to be supposedly affluent, and the other one is always struggling. But yet there's this supposed leadership of color there. Now, I have a name for that, but I'm going to be pretty cool on this show.
You'd best be.
Okay, I'll be pretty cool. Because I can't call these people black. You know, I believe there's no such thing as black on black crime.
Okay.
Black people don't do that to each other. And we need to just be really clear about that.
Okay.
You know, isn't that foolish to say, well, black people don't work together? Well, who am I? You know, so there are certain segments that do not represent the essence of what blackness is. Okay. And you all can understand what the words are out there in listening land.
I call them alternative.
Okay, well, that's a good word. We'll call them alternatives.
Alternatives.
Okay, but not black. So in this city, you have, let's talk about the school closures. Okay. In Bethune Elementary, Kennedy Middle School, but what do you have? $1 billion stadium. Arthur Blank's $1 billion stadium. But then you have a $50 million Mims Park, less than half a mile, not even half a mile from the Bethune and Kennedy. Then you have, of course, a Chick-fil-A. You have the Beltline, the Walmart, all of these developments, but yet school closures. Isn't that economically unsound? Usually when development comes in, the first things you prop up, well, one of the first things you prop up is a school.
That's
Absolutely.
right.
Because you're going to bring residential in
Absolutely.
later on. But see, in this, and I give you a little bit of history on Bethune Elementary. It used to be Davis Elementary when it was a white neighborhood. And when development came in, they expanded Davis Elementary, which used to be Bethune. But now that development is coming in for the black community there, they want to close it out. So the way it works is they started with the projects claiming, oh, we don't want people to live that way. Okay. Close those down. Next, they say, oh, the population in the school system has been depleted where there's too much space.
Gotta start
So let's
closing.
close the schools.
Yes.
Okay. So nobody's talking about how the housing authority works with that. So when you close the schools down, well, first you got, create instability at the home-to-home front. Okay. Parents have to move. They send them out to 285. And you hear them talking about MARTA, because MARTA's going to have to bring those people back and forth, right? You close down the schools claiming that it's not meeting too many empty seats. But yet you build a North Atlanta with an additional 2,000 seats for the schools to the tune of, and I heard earlier, $200 million over budget. But at the same time, they wanted to close 13 schools on the black schools when they were building the $200 million North Atlanta.
Isn't that interesting?
Well, it's, how can I say, the Georgia way. Is
it the Georgia way?
Oh yeah, you see.
But here's my problem. Georgia leadership has been black 40 years now. So how is this happening? And why is the leadership doing this to their own people?
Well, Atlanta leadership has been black for that. And forgive me for intruding upon that.
Go ahead.
But I will say that even I know that, and I live on the side of town where majority of our African-American mayors have come from. But I will also tell you that many of them have only focused on their community and not all of Atlanta. That makes a huge difference. So I completely know and I understand what it means to be an African-American in Atlanta, but I also know that that particular crowd has only subjected themselves to that crowd.
Well, you know, the real mayor is Sam Massell.
And he has been since 1972.
Sam Massell.
Sam Massell.
Sam Massell was the mayor before Maynard Jackson.
Before Maynard Jackson. Sam Massell is still the mayor of Atlanta.
Look at the growth of Buckhead and look at the South Side. But yet you said all these supposed black mayors. Okay, let's look at this current mayor, Keisha Lance Bottoms. How do you grow up on the South Side, going to a predominantly black school system on your side of town, elementary, middle school, then you get to Frederick Douglass, okay? You know what's been going on the South Side. You know the differences within the city. But the first thing you want to do as mayor, hand over billions of dollars for a hole in the ground called the Gulch to a white business establishment. So we have to understand that, in my opinion, Atlanta is one of the worst places to raise black children. Look at the amenities that are afforded to them during the summer. Do you see parks and things bringing out and all types of opportunities, especially as it relates to jobs for them during the summer?
No.
Do you see Atlanta public schools having partnerships where at least 10,000 kids are, their jobs set aside for them? Because it's not in the best. Because you know what?
Why isn't it in the best? Why?
Because it would create white flight in this city. Let's just be, I'm a straight shooter.
Why?
I'm going to tell you why. During the 70s, when they had the majority busing, the busing system, where there was a compromise that black children would not be sent. White children would never be sent to the South. Black children will always be sent to the North. And what Buckhead learned was that when they started closing schools on their side of town, that you had to have a person on the seat, on the board. And then that wasn't good enough. You had to pretty much control your schools as well. So let's look at the dynamics here. North Atlanta, at one point in time, probably still is today, is a Title I school, but it's in Buckhead.
It is. It's Title I.
Where do the kids come from? The kids come from the South Side. So the school benefits from the Title I dollars, but those kids are bused home. So who benefits?
Oh.
You get what I'm saying?
I'm getting it.
Maynard Jackson today has mainly all white schools. But what was Maynard Jackson a couple of years ago? Predominantly black, Samuel E. Cohen. So how in the world are you going to have an all-white 10th grade, 11th grade class? But you see, they use these people of color as segregationists. Let's move on to this charter crap that's going on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Get me started.
That's going to slap the 14th Amendment right in the face. Because here was Brown versus the Board of Education, okay, where our ancestors pretty much got things at least to the point where there was a balance. But with this charter system, it's going to take us back to the mud floors.
I can see that.
The mud floors, the separate schools, and then when your higher tier supposed black people want to say, I want my child to go to that school, well, legal segregation. You done knock the 14th Amendment out because they can write their own charter legally. So if LeBron James, I'm going to use him for an example, wants to create this school and everybody feels like, oh, that's the greatest thing. Well, he's uneducated in that realm because he doesn't understand that you need to truly, if you were in the best interest of the children in the area, you would wrap your arms around that entire school system.
There's money in education.
One.
There's money in education. That's why so many charter schools and so many schools are popping up everywhere, because there's a lot of money in education. And you can become an extremely wealthy person by founding or starting some type of school.
Well, you see, I'll tell you like this. That's the smoke screen. That's the smoke. That's the illusion.
Yeah.
Like this group Book.
Oh.
I never heard this group called Book. Mr. Courtney English the former board member is one of the supposed men in the book. And what did he do?
I think I rolled my eyes then. I'm sorry.
Hey, you can roll more than that, I tell you. But these, you see, right now.
Tell us about Book first.
Okay. Book is this group that's supposed to be this.
Better outcomes for our children.
Okay, yeah.
For our kids.
To be.
Right. So now that this superintendent, Kostappen, is probably in her next phase of trying to close some additional schools, I believe this group is set up to take that, the schools that are on the fringes over, okay, and try to cash in.
See, that's the excellent school model.
Precisely.
Where they rank the schools, and then if they don't perform, they cut out the bottom and give them away.
Mm-hmm. And that's, in my opinion, a smokescreen, because it's coming during the time that they're closing Alonzo Krim High School.
So can I, and I hate to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
One of the things that really bothers me, the more I think about the closing of Alonzo Krim, and I think about the state of Atlanta Public Schools now, I think about the fact that Alonzo Krim, who, by the way, for our listeners who may not know, was the first African-American superintendent for a metropolitan area.
Right.
That's right.
And he was a fantastic person. Alonzo Krim grew the Atlanta Public Schools to over 100,000 students at the time that he served as superintendent. But now we have much less than that serving in our, the students that live in our, or that are being serviced by our schools now. We had, I can't remember the number, but at some point after he had left, Atlanta had grown to over 100 schools in the system. And now we are constantly depleting the students. But of course, the students are being depleted because the schools are being depleted. And so it's amazing to me that you can stamp out somebody like Alonzo Krim completely out of the picture. You know, not him, but the school. The school is his legacy.
But what you said is significant.
I know.
Because soccer is the name of the game in this city.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to just be blunt, a little bit more. You all think that Atlanta truly won that World Cup or that soccer championship? I mean, let's just be, what has Atlanta won? And I'm going to tell you like this, there was some discrepancy behind it. But I'm going to tell you why it was significant.
In 1995.
Okay, yeah, okay. But it was essential that Arthur Blank and his team won because this is the largest market as relates to development and residential. And you see, out of that entire franchise, I think Orlando, New York, they're going to follow suit later on. But right now, Atlanta is a hot market for that. So when soccer is the name of the game, do black people at this point in time or black children are interested? They're more of the other sports. You know, if I go 1-2, probably football, basketball, and they're coming around to soccer. But they're trying to create Atlanta as a whole new culture of black people.
You hit the nail on the head. I talked about invisible hands.
Okay.
And I think that if you look at these hands, they are really socially engineering the population of Atlanta as we know it, or
You're
even
right.
Georgia as we know it.
You're right.
I remember during OSD, I saw a map of the Chamber of Commerce. They have since taken it off their site. But the Chamber of Commerce had areas that in rural Atlanta, in rural Georgia,
Right.
in Atlanta, along specific highways and roadways, and I think there was a place even through the Chattanooga River.
Right.
But those were the areas that they were going to develop.
Okay.
Now, those were all rural areas that were highly changing because of economics. There wasn't any economic choice for people to stay in those areas,
Right.
so you could buy that land cheap.
Yeah.
That was my first clue into what was happening for this social engineering of this area, many areas in Georgia. And there are people that we don't know about, but we're coming to know, that have plans that don't include the people that are here. In the early beginnings of Georgia,
Right.
the Native Americans were here, the Creeks, the Cherokee, Muskegee crowd. They were socially engineered out of this by the president, and they went through every avenue of our forms of governance
Right.
to maintain a space and a place here in this area until the president overruled everything and just wiped them out through the tail of tears. I taught that in second grade. I didn't know that.
Well, I tell you,
But this is what it's another form of social engineering.
Absolutely.
I believe, and it's my opinion.
That's what redistricting does.
It's but we're not aware of it until it happens. But what we can see now, thanks to you and thanks to other people who are speaking up, is we're beginning to see the plans others have for us. Now, my question is, how do we push back? How do we regain the space? How do we convince African Americans that this is public schools are a treasure and a resource that needs to be promoted?
well, I would say, because I'll come back to the African American part, but I say as the first wave of offense is you have to call out the major players. That's Arthur Blank, that's Warren Buffett, that's let's see. Of course, we mentioned Sam Massell.
If you just go to re-educate.
Re-educate. Yeah, well, the charter supporters, basically, Koch brothers, all of those guys who have a great deal of money to throw around and play with puppets, like the school boards that we have. So, people put a great deal of stock on these school boards, but they're a bunch of puppets. I mean, and that's nothing personal. I'm just telling you just how they operate.
The truth.
Yeah, it's the truth.
Absolute truth.
Yeah, when I say things, it's just based on what their role is, what they're supposed to carry out, and whether they're successful at it. And if we have schools constantly being closed or merged, how do you merge two schools together and one is supposedly not performing on level, and then the other one is mid-level? You combine those two schools, they're overcrowded. You put no resources in it. Is that supposed to spell success? I tell you, they did Bethune Elementary in Herndon like that. Herndon was supposedly had not suffered from the scandal, and Bethune did.
Yes.
Talk to Errol Davis, of course, rallied to say, hey, give the children some time. It's still fresh in the courts.
Exactly.
Don't close the schools on the children while they're going through this scandal, because no one has apologized and said, hey, it's not your fault. Nobody said that. Nobody apologized. So to come in and close the schools on the children who are seeing it in the news every day, like the cheating scandal, like they did it, was just totally...
Yeah, they make it that an excuse.
It was an excuse, but they put the children together. The school had poor leadership, which worked very hard to get rid of her, but the school fell to number 2 from the bottom. No fault to the children, but they put no additional resources. They promised that they were going to put additional resources in the school.
Planned deconstruction, that's what I call it.
That's what it was. And see, the sad part about it, like that cheating scandal, is people who look like me who are mainly the culprits of it. So, I think we talked earlier, like this, I coined this thing on the black side of town that's just self-hate, when a person is supposed to educate a young black child that looks like them, but they refuse to do so and treat them any kind of way, which is, I just feel like it's totally out of line and ridiculous. But then on the white end of the spectrum, there's institutionalized racism, where a lot of black people feel like, hey, sending my child to a predominantly white school is going to afford them a great education. But no, it doesn't.
No, it does not.
It subjects your child to, how can I say, I guess, an ugly place in society that they'll never be able to reach that plateau over, if I use a white Bobby or a white Susie. Because there's always this plateau in those environments where you can speak at a certain time, but the other kids can speak anytime they want to. You can't laugh at this point in time. You can go to the bathroom, but you can't go. So how's a child to take all of that in and feel confident? Now, they may make A's and B's because they're smart, but parents, I always tell them, look at the energy of your child. Is your child's energy declining? A lot of times parents are excited. Oh, you got an A, you got an A. But they don't see that child.
They don't see the
decline.
Yes.
Because when that child was 4 and 5 years old, they were running around, they were flying. I can do this, I can be everything. But why is it so different when they become second, third graders? fourth and fifth. And then it really declines when they get into high school because the parent is going through the ringer with the school saying, hey, do this for my child. And they just...
We had that conversation about improving, like our motto should be improve public education. But one of the planned ways of deconstructing a school is to let it fail and to put in the worst teachers and to make sure they don't have the resources. So everything goes down, 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 down. And then you can say, oh, I have a solution. And I was looking on this website. It's called Redefine Education. And it is an amazing organization that says, you know, all of these organizations that are privatized that are going to come in and be come in on a horse and save education, when in reality they're not going to do that at all. I looked about 4 years ago at the issue of corporations making a profit in prisons.
Right.
And I looked in the area of juvenile justice. I saw that all of these charters were going, especially here in Georgia, were being commissioned to go into the prisons in juvie and charterize schooling for those kids who are in juvenile process or in prison. That's for profit companies.
Right.
I looked at the immigration communities that are along the border. Charter schools owners are going into that area, charterizing schools for the immigrants in that area. I say this is how to make money. First of all, you have to have a population.
Right.
You wrap a rope around that population, and then you commoditize it.
Right.
This is what they're doing. That's not education. That's business.
Well, you know, I say let's stretch that out a bit further. If you have an opportunity to control a person's life for 25, 30 years, and let's just break it down, 12 years of education, but just say you cut it down to a 12-year education down to 8 years, okay? That child's pretty much going to wind up maybe in the prison system. So you add maybe 5, 10, 25 years to that, you're making how much money off one child's life that you didn't properly educate?
Well, that goes back to the school to prison pipeline.
There you go.
Which now, originally it was at the third grade level, but now I'm starting to hear that it's as far back now as kindergarten.
It is.
But it was originally written based on the population of students in third grade, where they would be. And we're building prisons based on the population of children that are in school now. And again, we go back to the whole thing about public education, the lack thereof of resources there makes it extremely impossible for these children to gain the wealth of knowledge that they need, basically because the schools don't have what they need to produce the children or to provide the children with the resources, the computers, the books. I mean, it's becoming ridiculous now that the line is so vivid now of resources on one side of the city and the other side of the city. And it's proven each and every day. And we discussed this previously about what's happening now because there's a lack of resources for children. They're looking for other.
I think you should edit that sentence. Because there is a planned lack of resources.
It is a planned lack.
Planned lack,
which is causing it to spill over into another arena. We discussed this in a previous topic, but it's causing it to spill into crime. I don't mind, as we know, is the devil's workshop. So when a child is not able to learn effectively, then he or she finds something else to do. Yeah. And I can think of as a child when I was doing absolutely nothing, I found something to do. I literally can remember just throwing butter at a wall because I had nothing to do. But that's butter when there are children who are literally walking around throwing bricks and breaking windows and moving their way further and further up from the south side because there's nothing else for them to do on this side. So let me go north and start to make a means there.
Let me add this piece. If you know that you are intentionally deconstructing an area, deconstructing a race, deconstructing a population, and you know that the less resources you give, there's going to end up being criminality and violence. Isn't that an easy way to get rid of a population?
Systematic plan.
Systematic plan.
That's exactly what it is.
This is, to me, the whole issue is much broader and much bigger than what we are experiencing. But I do believe in that if all of us got together, that we have the power, because we haven't lost democracy yet.
No.
We do have the power to reinstate ourselves as not just advocates, but leaders for this generation. We haven't lost them. We're just in the process of battling that which we can't see, which is...
Well, I tell you, I definitely want to hit this, plan to hit the system on the 14th Amendment violation. And because...
Tell us about that. 14th. What do you say? What do you mean by a 14th?
Well, with the Brown versus just the equality, the inequalities are going on. You're closing schools on one side of town, but you're not touching schools on the other side of town. You're labeling children failures on this side of town. Yeah, so really, you break it on down to just everything that the Brown versus the board was supposed to clean up as it relates to segregation, and now you have it pretty much strategically placed. But they're using the face of people of color to do it in these times, and think that they're going to get away with it. But they can be held accountable just like a white person or a racist white person would do it. So I know this city, people feel like, well, they look like they're black, they're trying to heck with that. To heck with that. They're going to go down. They need to be held accountable. And if they can't do right by our children who deserve the best, I just say there should be no poor school in Atlanta public schools. You know why? Because the funds come from one source, and they're supposed to. Some people say, well, they pay more taxes. It has nothing to do with the taxes you pay. For the people who are listening, it has nothing to do with the tax base of where the school is located. It's coming from one central school system, which is APS. That's or correct. AIS, Atlanta Independent Schools, and it's supposed to be distributed fairly. Now, if the children aren't getting that, you parents at home need to get up and say what's going on. But beyond that, educate yourselves. Educate.
How did you educate yourself?
By volunteering. I have no children of my own, but whoever their children are my children. That's right. And I fight like that. Because, hey, if nobody's going to step in the gap, I don't make excuses where the parents aren't showing up. I could care less. You made a comment or asked the question earlier about what is the African American community. I don't have time to wait on them. Either you're going to show up and be about it or get out of the way, because children don't have a lifetime. I don't need to hear this hum and ha. Well, what about this and what?
This is why I have Nate on Take a Stand, because that's what he does. He's got that passion inside of him to take a stand. It's prophetic.
Well, I say it's a calling.
It is a calling. It is a calling.
Not married, single guy. I could be just living my life, but when if I live to be 70, 80, or 90, and I choose a rocking chair of my choice or whatever, a couch, well, maybe I won't even do that. I don't want to be looking back saying what coulda, shoulda, and I didn't do it, and it was on my watch. So right now, it's my watch, and these people better be aware, and I think they pretty much know.
So where'd your calling come from?
I say, hey, the Heavenly Father.
The Heavenly Father, right. And this is what I really believe this, because I'm Catholic. Yeah. I went to Catholic schools. I worked in Catholic schools. I worked in the Archdiocese. Right. What am I doing here? Except that we are called, there are certain people, and you too, Joe, we are called to bend down to who needs it the most. Right. And in Atlanta, I had this great love for the people that are not, you can't see them, but I can see them slipping away like the sand on a tide. Yeah. Just slipping away because they are powerless against these forces. But I say we can change the tide. We can move it. We can make the tide work for us.
Well, the thing is, the people have the power.
People have the power.
When we're clear as to who the opposition is, and I make it very clear. I just mentioned a bunch of corporations. Hey, a $1 billion stadium in the heart of closed schools on black boys and girls, but yet you claim you want to put these fitness zones in.
It's really hard for them to listen to.
Well, because they're a fan of the Falcons. You know, I mean, if it's a choice between my child and a team that, you know, can't get it together, I think I go for the team's never going. It's about my children. Or if they're not my children, I need to wrap my arms around other people's children, because guess what? They're going to be knocking on my door, and it won't be when I'm at home.
Let's not forget how when they built the original stadium there, how the flooding, the sewage coming from the stadium flooded the bluff,
right,
flooded all of that area, and now they're trying to fix that. But that was not in the plan. You didn't intend to fix it the first place. You know, it's an unfortunate thing that corporations, big businesses, take complete control of everything, even down to something as fundamental as education, something as free as education. But big businesses have completely taken over the education system, which is why now that the support and the investment of children is little to none.
Well, let's look at the cost that they're paying. Let's look at the Falcons, for example. Remember that Super Bowl they had?
No, I don't. I get the teams mixed up.
I'll bring you up to speed. They're on the Super Bowl, and they were in the lead over the Patriots. About to beat the Patriots.
How about that?
But guess what happened now?
I remember
Look at all the schools he closed, the 2 churches that were closed. You know, a real crazy benefits package for the community. What, $10 million, but no residual income coming to it? When you don't do right, and then, of course, let's not forget the seniors that they tried to burn out in, what was that?
Williams Tower.
Yeah, in the tower. But you expect to win? So, you know, life has a weird way.
Karma
is something else. So, you know, when I tell you that I fight, I witnessed many a miracle in my life. I'm no holy roller by no means. Of course, you know, you saw how I opened the show. Hey, I'm no holy roller by no, but I believe. And I witnessed many a miracle in my life by standing up for young boys and girls who deserve more. Yeah, another example. So I'll just say to the listening audience out there, if you have children, don't have children, desire to have whatever, let's rally behind. There should not be one child in this city who walks by and we don't say, hey, how you doing? Because we're not talking to our children. They're not even acknowledged. A lot of times that's why they act out. They act out for attention. A lot of times it's the wrong way. But aren't we supposed to be there to help channel that? But what does the school system do? As soon as there's an infraction or whatever, they want to suspend.
Yes.
They over-suspend black boys and girls.
Yes, they do.
And when they over-suspend black boys and girls, and they're not in school, in kindergarten and everything, so it creates a criminal mindset. It sets them up to be prison fodder.
Exactly. It fodder. Exactly.
Detention.
Exactly.
So what child wants to be suspended, regardless of what the infraction is? And I say, parents, go to those schools and get your check out your child's record. Because, you see, the reason why they give black boys and girls so many years, because they go back to the school. They say, oh, okay, you've been doing this, but you robbed the store. Okay, we're going to give you 100 years. But when white Johnny shoots up a school, he has no prior record because they don't document them. They don't document white boys and girls like they do black boys and girls. So,
well, that's what helps the school to prison pipeline.
Precisely. That's why.
Well, I'd like you to talk a little bit. We have about 20 minutes to go. I want to talk a little bit about an upward movement.
Okay.
I know that I have a background in neuroscience of the brain.
Okay.
And one of the things that I know is that if you're talking about a human brain, it has neurons that create it, that are plastic, and you can rearrange them depending on how you think. You can engineer your mind, in other words. I see that what happens with many of these systems is that they're like powerful patterns that come at you that are negative, that do not have your best interest in mind, and would like to remove and feel themselves as stronger than you are. And so they want to push you out. But I see also that they can make the community stronger, and there can be a pushback. There can be a language that brings a new dimension to, and that's what I'm doing by having you all here. If you stand up and you force yourself or force others to listen to a different way, that rearranges the conversation. And whatever is pushing towards you, you can pull back by using language, by using conversation, by using resistance. So you've been in this a long time, Nate. Who do you see as the resistance that's creating another narrative?
Who do I see as the resistance?
Besides yourself.
Oh, you're talking about, the opposition. I have to tell you.
No,
that's going
who's
against.
joining
Okay.
you, that's pushing against it?
I tell you, there are some great people who join in from time to time, because I'm the type of person that I know how hard I go in.
Yeah.
And some people just like, okay,
here he comes.
I'll do this and that. But things have worked out. But I say some people are looking for opportunities to come up. They don't believe in the power within themselves. They believe that the opposition is the all powerful. So they get sucked in. You understand what I'm saying? Because they look searching for some type of monetary gain or whatever. Me, it's about the children. And if these people had something positive for me to gain, I wouldn't have to fight them. But people don't see it that way. Yeah, if I could tell you the number of times I was told, "Oh, that's such a big machine," or "You can't fight them," or "You can't do this," I'm just like, they don't know who they're talking to. You know,
Power of one.
Well, I'll say a team. There's a strategic team. You know, you've met some, well, of course, there's Ron, but there's certain others. We come together at a certain point in time. But you see, my role, I feel like, is to put together a strategy. See, part of this propaganda where I document. So I have to hit them hard. And I use satire. I don't put them in the best light. Like, here's Arthur Blank holding the superintendent up on the puppet string. Okay, on the back are her top 10 plays, like closing schools, merging schools, privatization. Here it is. Save Alonzo Krim from these clowns, which pretty much has most of the board, their attorney, and a couple of other people. And then the top reasons why. So my goal is to make this nationwide or international, because just like the civil rights, I give you a prime example how, my opinion, Dr. King was successful. Had he not won that Nobel Peace Prize,
That's right.
he wouldn't have had as much. Because the United States, the United States
Somebody
would
got
appear
behind him.
Yes.
United States would appear hypocritical, trying to look out for the rest of the world. But here you are, a man of color in your own backyard. You don't want to hear. So with this whole movement, it can't be fought within Atlanta alone.
Correct.
Because
correct.
see, right now, you know the power we have, or the Army of One, or however you want to call it. This city cannot afford any conversation negatively on race, doing seniors wrong, or treating people who are in poverty like crap or moving them out, because it's a bad PR move. And I tell you why we have the advantage. They have billions, I dare say zillions invested. Look at how they're opening up that port in Savannah. You know, the work down there.
Well, didn't the governor do that?
Precisely. And that meeting they had over there with China, how they opened up the borders for Cuba, and soccer is here. So, we have to get outside. It's not just education that I try to tell people, hey, it's not about the superintendent board. I said they rooty poops on the bottom end of the totem pole. It's big business. And they don't care nothing about our young black boys and girls who desire a bright future and just fed crumbs. So
They want a workforce.
and I'm going to tell like this. Here's the ugly future of it. If we don't stop this cycle, black people have gone through slavery once, but when you take education out of the fold and you have come out of that, how do you get back into the situation and come out of it? I don't think there's going to be another reawakening of a civil rights movement or the abolitionists. You just stuck. So it'll be a shame that they're sending our young people across the globe for cheap labor. So I say, to heck with that.
You got to find a new way to be, but you have to first of all see the issues as they are. And I thank you so much for bringing all of this up.
Well, the solution is, here's the solution. A lot of times people say, hey.
No, you don't have the solution. Nobody has a solution.
I'll tell you, here's the solution.
Until everybody gets together.
And I'm going to tell you how. When we put our children first.
Of course.
That's right.
everything, nothing else matters. Your religion, your background, your race,
Amen.
where you come from, all this. When we put our children's interests first, I don't care if you got a pot to do it in and one not to. When you put the children first, that's the commonality. That's the melting.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat. Look at the children. I don't care if you're black. Look at the children. Hey, you're from the North. I'm from the South. Look at the children. When we put the children truly first, that galvanizes the community. And we're on one accord.
I will agree with that.
I totally agree. We have a group called Children First, Kids First.
Yeah, that's my group.
No, that's a school choice group.
No, I think they're, what is theirs? Theirs is, it's children. I think theirs is Children's First.
Children First.
Yeah, I think with Michelle Rhee in that group. Yeah, I think there's, Students. Students First.
Oh.
I think that's theirs.
Well, anyway, I think it's really just an incredible age we're living in, because there are so many forces that we need to really critically think through. And they also are putting kids first, but there's a little dollar sign on top of them.
Well, there's a cost.
And that is not right. I believe in public education. I believe that those who need it the most should get the resources that they need equitably, and that equity needs to be spread out. I've already got a lot. I don't need more. Mm-hmm. Don't give me more. Give it to them.
Well, see, that's the tough bullet that, okay, if you're talking about equity between black and white, the white is going to have to bite the bullet and say, okay, we understand that we're going to have to stack up some more. The black's going to have to stack up some more boxes so we can have equality.
There you go.
You see?
Equity.
Equity. That's equity. Now, equality is, okay, my box is here, your box is here, but we still getting the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nobody's moving. So when we get the true equity as relates to what's needed.
Exactly.
Those required to. But you see,
all right, give me 3 ways. But each of us are going to say 3 ways to get equity in Atlanta. What would you do to bring an equitable situation into Atlanta?
Get rid of the entire Atlanta Board of Education. That's just my way.
Who would you put in?
Parents, teachers.
Parents, teachers.
And even implement a student
Principals.
organization that has a buy-in. The children know what they need.
Why do you think that they don't want to be?
I don't think it's that they don't want to be. It's that
on the school
we've just
board.
come to a realization that they're not even being heard in their own schools. Mm-hmm. And now, if they get out here and they attempt to run for office or become an elected official, they won't be heard then. I can remember a time when the board was full of educators and parents and teachers.
And they did what was right for the kids.
But that has since left. The late 90s exited that type of board. We haven't had that type of board since the mid to late 90s.
Wow.
Over 20 years.
What about you?
I would say we start with love first, because the resources are there. They're just not equitably distributed. But when you start with the love, that's going to encourage the children to be able to perform. So when the equity components come in, you're not pulling teeth. Right now, the children have been raked over the coals. A lack of confidence, self-esteem, and feeling like, hey, there's no future. So you start with love first. Then you come in with exposure. Show the children all the possibilities that exist in the world as relates to having a great education. Then after you have that, get some people in there with some backbone, some doggone backbone, some doggone backbone to steer the ship. And when they have the doggone backbone, guess what? Everything's going to fall in line. They're going to feel the love. They're going to fall in line with the discipline. They're going to be ready to educate because they see the possibilities, and then they can see themselves in the future.
That's
and
good.
Real deal adults will be there to support them.
And what I say is believe that these are the future of the United States. I was looking at, someone sent me this thing from, you might want to look at it, National Geographic, and it's on inequality in cities across the world. Mm-hmm. Just an amazing, because I just got back from South Africa, and I have also been in Guatemala.
I see.
And they're aerial views so that you can see it and experience it. Atlanta, if you took an aerial view, you couldn't see income inequality.
Nope.
Yet.
Not at all.
But if this trajectory continues, there will be significant income inequality, and there will also be a tale of two visible cities from an aerial view. I say believe in this generation because we know that they have the answers. I believe in them. They have the answers. And I don't want the kids, I never grew up with the idea that I should have more than you or that you deserve more than me. I never grew up with that as a religious woman or as a participant in society. I didn't see inequality in the little city that I grew up with because there weren't any blacks. They were redlined out.
Right.
Except for the kids at the end of the street.
Well, I tell you, Reverend Dougherty, this generation of black boys and girls is one of the most brilliant,
I believe it,
talented group of young people, and that's the threat. You see, we did a whole lot of talking about why, but this generation is the true threat to what's going on, and that's why they're destabilizing education. That's why they're displacing parents and families, creating a great deal of chaos,
and then making sure they don't vote.
All of those components, because this generation, and I'm not talking about because of the year after year you have kids. No, there's something special about this generation that they must destroy. And I tell you, they're doing a great job. So we need to wake up. I'm not just talking about black people, white people. We need to wake up because as we move forward in life, we're going to need everybody on board.
Oh, I just love you. You know what? You are a preacher. You are a teacher. You are a prophet.
Be a preacher.
I mean...
hey, well, I accept all of that, then.
But you know what?
You can use anything, Lord.
Anyone. So I think it's time to call this up. I thank Joe for being here. It was an amazing gift to have you.
I feel privileged to have been here.
Godsend. And of course, Nate.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
I just love having you here. Love being with you. We're kindred spirits.
I do agree.
From different mothers.
I do agree.
And thank you. I also want to make a little recognition of Penny Rogers, our little producer here. Do you know that she was received and had special honor during this month of great women?
Oh, yeah, well,
at the city hall.
Not to mention, she is a product of a public school. Look at that. Look at that.
Let's let everybody see you. Come on in.
See enough of me.
We're just so proud because here's someone that was raised in a public school and followed her passion, and there she goes. See?
Well, congratulations. Which was it in there? Where was it? Where
the city hall.
The school. The school ain't there no more. Don't. The school ain't there no more.
You see, and that's a lot of history, but then that's just a whole nother.
And these kids will have their schools, and they'll want them to be around for their children
too. I'm gonna fight we
have to fight for neighborhoods, fight for community schools,
fight like heck, and heck of the heck, like heck of the heck.
So again, thank you so much. And there's Autumn, who has been here helping us, and Mr. Oliver. We appreciate all of you and the work that you've done.
Okay, great. Yeah, but there's some great products from Atlanta Public Schools and many more to come. And we just have to fight. Let's look back and understand that the way they're treating our young boys and girls in this system, I'm going to just be specific by saying the black boys and girls, it's just a shame.
Yeah, but you know what? Just go back to Egypt and the oppression that those people of God lived through.
Right.
And who did God call? Moses. And they rose up.
They sure did.
They will rise. We will rise. We will go with them.
I feel it.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you all. Signing off. This is the Take a Stand, and we've been listening to Nate Dyer. Joe is our guest, Joe Flint, and everybody else. Have a wonderful evening.
And great job. Great job.